Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever felt that deep, unsettling suspicion? That little voice inside whispering that something just isn't right? That gut feeling that claws at you, especially when it comes to family and what's rightfully yours. We all crave fairness, don't we? We yearn for truth, especially when loss casts a long shadow. But what happens when the very person entrusted with upholding that truth, a family lawyer no less, seems to be weaving a web of deceit? What happens when your own sibling, someone you share blood with, appears to be part of that deception? Today, we're diving into a story that chills you to bone, a story of hidden agendas, broken trust, and a truth so shocking it was the last thing anyone expected. This is a tale about the late Mr. Harrison's will, his 2 children, and the darkness that threatened to consume their family. Let's dive in to see what really unfolded. The air in the lawyer's office felt thick, heavy with unspoken words and a tension you could practically touch. For Darius, sitting across the polished mahogany desk from Mr. Abernathy, the family lawyer, every breath felt like a struggle. His father, Mr. Harrison, a kind and generous man, had recently passed away, leaving behind a legacy Darius always believed would be shared equally between him and his sister, Seraphina. They were a close-knit family, or so he thought. Mr. Abernathy, a man whose face seemed permanently etched with professional seriousness, cleared his throat, the sound echoing in the otherwise silent room. He held a crisp document in his hands. The will. Darius's heart pounded in his chest. He glanced at Seraphina, who sat beside him, her expression unreadable. A knot of unease tightened in his stomach. Something felt off. Seraphina hadn't met his gaze since they entered the office. "As you both know," Mr. Abernathy began, his voice measured and calm, "your father's will outlines the distribution of his estate. It's quite straightforward." Darius leaned forward, his palms sweating. "Straightforward? That's good to hear." He tried to inject a note of optimism into his voice, but it sounded hollow even to his own ears. Mr. Abernathy adjusted his glasses, his eyes scanning the document. "It states here that the primary residence, the family home, and the bulk of the financial assets are to be bequeathed solely to Miss Seraphina Harrison." The words hit Darius like a physical blow. He stared at Mr. Abernathy, then at Seraphina, his mind reeling. Solely to Seraphina? There must be some mistake. Our father always said everything would be divided equally. Seraphina finally looked at him, but her eyes held a strange coolness, a distance he had never seen before. "The will is clear, Darius." Her voice was flat, devoid of any emotion. Suspicion, cold and sharp, pierced through Darius's shock. Had his father changed his mind? And if so, why? He and Seraphina had always been equal in their father's eyes. He remembered countless conversations, promises whispered over family dinners, assurances of fairness. This didn't make sense. Did you know about this, Seraphina?" Darius asked, his voice trembling slightly. Seraphina hesitated for a fraction of a second, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her face before she masked again. "I was aware of my father's wishes." Darius's heart sank. The coldness in her voice, the lack of surprise, it all pointed to something he didn't want to believe. He looked back at Mr. Abernathy, his eyes pleading for an explanation. But why? Was there a codicil? Something we weren't told about? Mr. Abernathy's gaze remained steady. "There are no other documents pertaining to Mr. Harrison's estate. This is the final will and testament." A wave of disbelief washed over Darius, followed by a surge of anger. He felt betrayed, not just by the contents of the will, but by the way Seraphina was acting, by the lawyer's seemingly indifferent demeanor. Something was terribly wrong here. He could feel it in his bones. The desire for truth, for justice, began to burn fiercely within him, eclipsing his grief. Over the next few weeks, Darius became consumed by his suspicions. He couldn't shake the feeling that Mr. Abernathy wasn't telling the whole truth. Small inconsistencies in the lawyer's statements gnawed at him. He remembered a casual conversation with his father just a few months before he passed, where his father had explicitly mentioned updating his will to ensure equal distribution. Why would he say that if he intended something else entirely? Driven by a deep sense of unease and a growing suspicion that Seraphina knew more than she was letting on, Darius decided to take matters into his own hands. He started by meticulously going through his father's personal belongings, searching for any clue, any document that might shed light on this discrepancy. He spent countless nights poring over old letters, financial statements, and even seemingly insignificant notes his father had scribbled. One evening, while sifting through a box of old photographs, Darius stumbled upon a hidden compartment in his father's desk. Inside, tucked away beneath a stack of old insurance policies, was a sealed envelope marked with his father's familiar handwriting. His heart leaped with anticipation. This had to be it. With trembling hands, Darius opened the envelope. Inside was another document, dated just a few weeks before his father's passing. It was a handwritten addendum to the original will, clearly stating his father's wish for his estate to be divided equally between his two children. Darius felt a surge of relief, quickly followed by a fresh wave of anger. This proved his suspicions were right. The original will Mr. Abernathy presented was not the complete picture. But why? Why would the lawyer conceal this crucial document? And why wouldn't Seraphina reveal its existence? The questions swirled in Darius's mind, each one more troubling than the last. He knew he had to confront them, both Mr. Abernathy and his sister. The truth, no matter how painful, had to come out. Armed with a handwritten addendum, Darius scheduled another meeting with Mr. Abernathy. This time, he wouldn't be alone. He had contacted a trusted friend, a paralegal named Bethany, to accompany him and ensure everything was handled correctly. When they arrived at Mr. Abernathy's office, the lawyer's usual composure seemed slightly ruffled. Seraphina was already there, her expression guarded. Darius didn't waste any time. He placed the handwritten document on the lawyer's desk. "Mr. Abernathy," he said, his voice firm but laced with a deep sense of hurt, "perhaps you overlooked this." Mr. Abernathy's eyes widened slightly as he picked up the document and read it. A look of disbelief, quickly replaced by a carefully constructed mask of surprise, spread across his face. I've never seen this before." "That's strange, isn't it?" Darius countered, his gaze fixed on the lawyer. "It was hidden in my father's personal desk, dated just weeks before he passed. It clearly states his intention for equal distribution." Seraphina remained silent, her eyes darting between Darius and Mr. Abernathy. Bethany, who had been observing the interaction closely, spoke up. "Mr. Abernathy, are you suggesting that this document is not legitimate?" The lawyer hesitated, a bead of sweat trickling down his temple. No, it appears to be in Mr. Harrison's handwriting, but it wasn't filed with the original will." "Why not?" Darius pressed, his voice rising. "Were you aware of this document, Mr. Abernathy?" The lawyer's carefully constructed facade began to crumble. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, avoiding Darius's gaze. I can't explain it. It was Bethany who finally pieced it together. "Seraphina," she said, her voice calm but firm, "were you aware of this addendum?" Seraphina's composure finally broke. Tears welled up in her eyes, and her voice trembled as she spoke. Yes, I knew about it." Darius stared at his sister, a wave of confusion and hurt washing over him. "You knew? And you didn't say anything? Why, Seraphina? Why?" Seraphina's voice was choked with emotion. I was scared, Darius. Mr. Abernathy. He told me that if this other document surfaced, it would complicate things. He suggested it might even be invalid. He said it would be easier, cleaner, if we just followed the original will. Darius turned to the lawyer, his eyes blazing with anger. "You manipulated her? You deliberately concealed my father's true wishes." Mr. Abernathy remained silent, his face pale. The truth hung heavy in the air, a bitter and devastating revelation. The family lawyer, the man entrusted with upholding their father's wishes, had lied, had manipulated, all for reasons Darius couldn't yet fathom. The truth, once revealed, sent shockwaves through the already grieving family. The carefully constructed image of a trustworthy lawyer shattered, replaced by the ugly reality of deceit and manipulation. Seraphina, torn between her brother and the lawyer's influence, finally broke down, confessing the extent of Mr. Abernathy's lies and the pressure he had put on her. It turned out that Mr. Abernathy had his own motives. The original will contain certain clauses that would have benefited him financially in the long run, clauses that the handwritten addendum would have nullified. His greed had led him down a dark path, causing immense pain and division within the Harrison family. The legal repercussions for Mr. Abernathy were swift and severe. His license was revoked, and he faced criminal charges for his unethical and illegal actions. The court recognized the validity of the handwritten addendum, and Mr. Harrison's estate was finally divided equally between Darius and Seraphina, as their father had intended. The road to healing was long and arduous. The trust between Darius and Seraphina had been deeply fractured. While the truth had come to light, the pain of betrayal lingered. They had to navigate the complex emotions of grief, anger, and the difficult process of rebuilding their relationship. It took time, open communication, and a shared commitment to honoring their father's memory to mend the wounds inflicted by Mr. Abernathy's lies. This story reminds us that appearances can be deceiving, and that even those in positions of authority are not immune to greed and dishonesty. It highlights the importance of trusting your instincts, of questioning what doesn't feel right, and of fighting for truth and justice, especially when it comes to family and what is rightfully yours. What are your thoughts on this story? Have you ever experienced or witnessed a situation where trust was betrayed within a family? Share your experiences in the comments below. We'd also love to know where in the world you're watching from. And if you found this story compelling, please hit that like button. It helps us reach more people. Thank you for being here. And remember, truth always finds its way to the light. The moral of the story is that even in the face of deception, the truth, however painful, has a way of revealing itself, and that the bonds of family, though tested, can be strengthened through honesty and forgiveness.